Good evening, everyone. Okay, so we have Vivek here, who is an alumnus of RSM 2012 batch. So Vivek, why don't you give a brief introduction of yourself before getting into the presentation?
Sure. So thank you first of all, thank you, Ozma, for inviting me for this talk. A quick introduction about myself. Actually, it's there in the slide, so if it's okay, can I go ahead with the slide?
Yeah, sure.
So I am currently I am a CEO and co-founder of my own startup called Customer Guru in Bangalore. Before that, I was working with a company called Customer Gauge in Amsterdam. That's right after my MBA. After my MBA, for some time I worked with Philips Lighting, post which I started working with Customer Gauge in Amsterdam. Before that, I used to work with TCS, which took me to work in Toronto as well as in Leeds and Pune and Ahmedabad in India. And before that, I was doing my engineering from BITS Ranchi. So that's a quick introduction about myself. Well, I don't have a lot of slides, to be honest. I've just got like 3 slides. So the Q&A, I believe the most value is delivered when I'm going to be answering the Q&A. So I'll just move on to a quick introduction about RSM. It is one of the top 10 business schools in Europe. Through my experience in RSM and having lived there and from whatever I have heard from other people and in other business schools, apart from what is published in the media, so I'm telling you something from kind of an insider knowledge, that RSM is actually best known for its diversity of cohort, plus the courses that RSM offers in sustainability, strategy and leadership are really sought after. Apart from that, you should look at RSM as a school if you're thinking of making a move into Europe, because Netherlands as a country also is pretty favorable for expats. There are quite a few jobs over there. Most of the people in Netherlands also speak English, which is an advantage compared to other countries like France or Germany. While there are better schools in UK, the situation in UK is a little it's a little unsteady right now, whereas Netherlands has been quite steady. Some of the world's biggest organizations also come from Netherlands, some like Shell, Unilever, Philips Lighting and even TomTom. These kind of companies are all have their headquarters in Netherlands. Plus Amsterdam also has one of the most exciting and thriving startup culture. So if you're looking at getting into European startup or European startup ecosystem, Amsterdam is probably one of the best places to be in. So I'll quickly move on to more specific considerations with respect to Rotterdam School of Management. So these are some of the things that when I was exploring doing an MBA in Europe, I was considering. Obviously, for me, the first choice was that I want to go for a 1-year MBA. I didn't want to go for a 2-year MBA. And the way to go about making that decision, whether you should be doing a 1-year or a 2-year MBA, is based on what kind of background you come from. So if you have several years of experience, for instance, when I was thinking of getting into MBA, I already had 5 years of experience. So it's important to consider that. If you have several years of experience, it's best to get into a 1-year MBA course. That was one of my major reasons. And compared to Europe, there are very few colleges or very few B schools in US that have a 1-year MBA, which was another reason why I wanted to get into RSM. So tuition fee comparatively at RSM is a lot reasonable. If you will compare that against the likes of INSEAD, HEC, Oxford, or even LBS, and those guys are much higher than RSM. At least I have not checked the recent tuition fees, but at the time when I was getting into the MBA, it was pretty reasonable, and the cost of living also is in Netherlands isn't that high if you compare that to maybe Paris or somewhere in London. That ways Rotterdam is a much more livable place. Maybe Amsterdam is a little bit more expensive, but since you would be studying in Rotterdam, it's much more livable, and the expenses over there aren't that high. To give you some numbers, when I did my MBA, I spent in total tuition plus living costs plus everything in it between 25 to 30 lakhs, which was from some of my friends who did an MBA in ISB. They said that they ended up spending almost the equal amount of money in their course. What's most interesting about RSM is the MBA cohort that you would kind of get to study or share your class with. In my class, or in my batch, as we call it in India, in my batch we had 140 students, and those students came from 48 different nationalities. So that's a very normal thing in RSM. RSM actually picks up students based on diversity. So if you're coming from, India has a huge IT population that applies to MBA, but if you have any diverse background, even a lower GMAT score works at RSM, because RSM puts a lot of weightage on diversity. So for instance, if you're an accountant from India and you've not worked with any of the big fours, you might make it to RSM because RSM might find it more interesting. If you're an entrepreneur and now you want to get into MBA, that could be interesting. If you are maybe a merchant navy or someone from the army background and want to switch over to MBA, those kind of things are going to be a lot more heavy when it comes to RSM's consideration for your candidature. So when I was also applying, I used to think that GMAT is the only thing, but with my application experience, I realized that okay, GMAT is only probably 20% of the part of your application. The course and curriculum is quite nice, especially the course in leadership, the course in strategy. There's one course in negotiation which has the highest number of bidders and the most competitive course at RSM. But overall, the course structure is very nice. I liked the professors a lot. There were a few Dutch professors, especially the supply chain and operations course was taken by a Dutch professor, and the Dutch people, they have been known for their supply chain efficiency, so it's best that they are taking that course, especially if you are also looking at making a career switch into supply chain or operations management. RSM is a really good school because the Dutch people have been the pioneers in improving operational efficiency of organizations and creating better operating businesses around the world. So that, and being one of the busiest ports in Europe, Rotterdam is also has also a prolific amount of opportunity if you want to get into port industry, supply chain, port, logistics, those kind of industries. There's an ample amount of opportunity from RSM into these industries. So course and curriculum wise, I'll answer more specific questions once we get to the Q&A. From the extracurricular activities, there's a ton of activities going on around over there. Mostly the student body at the RSM MBA. So there are two kinds of student body. One is with the MBA course, and then RSM has several other courses running in a different building in the same university campus. Their student association body is called STAR. So try to make your way into STAR, and STAR does a lot more activities and has a bigger association as compared to the MBA student association. But the MBA student association kind of comes under the STAR. So this is a tip for anyone who's trying to go to RSM and wants to use extracurricular activities and extracurricular participation as an edge to develop your personality and gel into the entire Dutch network. Then getting into STAR would really help you. one of the key extracurricular activity that happens at all the European school almost is the MBA tournament that is hosted by HEC Paris, which is something that you should obviously, and I mean, there's no doubt that you wouldn't want to miss that. Plus, there are several clubs that are there, that are formed by the student association. I was the vice president of the student association, chairing the responsibility for career development in the student association. So you get to join several executive positions in the student association. Plus, you could also have take up club leadership roles. There are several clubs like IT business club. There is a finance club. There's a supply chain club, and several other clubs are there. And each of these clubs are hosting business competitions, bringing industry leaders to speak in a panel. And RSM has a huge alumni network also. So several people are very passionate to come to RSM and talk about their industry experience post RSM MBA. So that's also something that keeps on happening around the year. Plus, there are several sessions around presentation skills, around CV writing, around cover letter writing, and all of those things keep on happening from the career development side. So there's a lot of extracurricular activities that are going to be going on around over there. There's one thing that is unique about RSM is that you get a summer vacation of about 1.5 months, during which period most of the people go out and kind of holiday in Europe. So that's another great extracurricular activity. Plus, there is an alumni meet that happens, that is organized by the sailing club of RSM. And it's a unique way of meeting your alumni network by going out on a sailing trip with them somewhere in Netherlands, in one of the lakes near Netherlands. The biggest difference with Indian B schools is that you get to meet very different kind of people. You would be interacting with in my class. I'll give you an example. I had people all the way from Australia to Alaska. We had several Japanese, Chinese, Taiwanese, Philippines, Thai, Indonesian, Singaporean, everyone around. Indians were there. There were people from Middle East. There were people from Africa. There were people from, obviously, from Europe. Interestingly, there were only 3 Dutch people in our class. Everyone else was from outside. So the first day is very different. You are almost like you're thrown off guard, because you get to meet so many different kind of people, and it's so difficult to remember everybody's names. But within a couple of days, because you are put in a very competitive, highly aggressive environment where something is happening every day, it's a year-round eventful journey which passes like in a blink of an eye, and you would always think like you're missing out on more things to do. That's one of the biggest difference in between RSM and Indian B school. One of my classmates from BIT did his MBA from ISB, and he did an MBA before I went into RSM, so I seek his feedback whether I should be joining ISB or RSM. He said in ISB you will get to meet the same kind of people as yourself with the same kind of background. A few would be different, but majority of the cohort will be the same. For me at RSM, there were environmentalists, there were biologists, there were lawyers, there were people from manufacturing background, people from FMCG background. There were several people with a VC experience, and obviously IT experience. So several kinds of industries are represented also. RSM really plays it big in diversity. When I say that they really do that, you'll be surprised by the amount of diversity you would have in the cohort. And if that is something that you value with respect to your network, because post MBA, that is the thing that you are kind of left with, your network that you develop in the MBA, in the B school, which is going to be phenomenal at RSM. Difference with other B schools in the region, it's a little less expensive. I think it's the cohort is also a lot more friendly and with my experience talking to my friends who went to LBS and Said Business School and INSEAD, the level of competitiveness in those schools is much higher than RSM. On the other side, at RSM, while the competitiveness is a little lower, you get to make really good friends who are going to help you and support you through your life for your professional career. It's very clear over there that you're making professional friends. People come with several years of experience, even with 5 years of experience, 5.5 years of experience. I was on the lower side of the experience bracket in my class. People had an average experience of about 7, 8. So that was the average year of experience in my class. At LBS, the average number of years of experience is higher. And at SIDE also it is higher, INSEAD also it is higher. So there people are a lot less into like making friends and all that. But while you'll have an amazing experience at the other big schools also, but these are critical differences. Plus at RSM, even the teaching faculty has a huge diversity. So we had faculty coming from Canada to South Africa, and even someone from Japan also visits and has some classes over there. So it depends on what kind of electives and what kind of course you pick up, but you will generally come across very diverse teaching faculty as well. The post-MBA opportunities, one of the things, this is where I think most of us coming from India kind of get a shock, because outside of India, almost everywhere around the world, you will never get a placement service, which is something which is very unique to Indian business schools, where you have something called as a placement service from the college itself. There is nothing like a placement service from the college. The college will help you prepare for job hunting, help you tailor your CV in a way that gets shortlisted. It will help you prepare for everything around it, but it will not get you in front of companies. That is something that you have to do yourself. There will be companies that are going to come and they're going to speak at several panel discussions at RSM, but they will not be speaking as pre-placement talks, and then they straight away get into interviewing you for your candidature. That doesn't happen. You basically have to start making your connect from the day one, because you'll be coming across several companies, people coming from several companies, talking about their experience at that company and what kind of thing they are doing right now. And it's your job to kind of catch hold of them, introduce yourself, and then create a warm connection with them by keeping a regular engagement via social media, via LinkedIn. LinkedIn is something that is very much used in Netherlands. If you want to do anything at all in Europe or outside of India, you have to have a very strong LinkedIn network plus a very strong LinkedIn profile. So work on those things. With respect to the opportunities, Netherlands has a lot of opportunities, and around Netherlands also, Brussels, Luxembourg, Denmark, Germany. These are also countries which have a lot of opportunities, and even companies like Amazon, Yahoo, those kind of companies are also, so Google also, they have their offices in Netherlands and around countries around Netherlands. So you get a lot of opportunities if you are trying to get into IT, in the technology industry. I believe most of us come from a technology background, and maybe the post-MBA jump might want to be, you might want to get into a technology or stay in the technology industry. If finance, one of the things that most of us want to do post MBA is get into finance, be a banker. But for that, I don't think RSM is a good school. If you want to get into finance, go join probably HEC or NCR or LBS. Other than that, RSM is a good school if you want to use the curriculum over there and get into strategy roles or consulting roles, and especially try to stick in your own industry. You'll get a lot more opportunity if you come from the same industry. So that's about it with respect to all the details. Thank you so much for listening to me. I can start taking questions now.
Thank you, Vivek. That was very informative. So before we go on to, guys, please start typing in your questions until we receive the questions. So I have a couple of questions of my own, if that's okay. You mentioned that in your cohort there were 140 people. Would you remember how many of them were Indians?
Yes, there were about 28 Indians.
Oh, that's a quite a high percentage.
Yes,
right.
But the Chinese people were a lot more than us.
Right, of course. So and that 25 to 28, that's kind of the average number of Indian students they would take every year. Is that a fair assumption?
I think so, yes.
And what would you...
The class before us...
Yeah.
The class before us had 20 Indians.
Oh, okay.
So our senior batch had 20 Indians on it. So it actually depends a lot on the kind of applicants, Osman. They don't have like a fixed quota that they have to fill in these many Indian students.
Sure. So so if somebody is looking at the MBA to change their industry, so do you think RSM is the place to go? I mean, because you mentioned that if somebody wants to stick to their own domain, then that's when they will get the maximum out of the RSM MBA. Did I understand it right?
I didn't mean that you would get maximum out of RSM if you want to stick to your own industry. What I meant was it is going to be easier to find more opportunities if you stick to your industry, because what happens is that with an MBA you are trying to change either of the three things: location, which is geography, the function that you are in. So you're trying to make a geography jump, you're trying to make a functional jump, or you're trying to make an industry jump. So you're already, if by going to MBA in Netherlands, you've already made the geography jump. Now, if you are looking for a functional jump plus an industry jump, then it becomes very difficult for you to get something with all these three things as a jump, because people want to, after an MBA, you look at it from the company's perspective also. You are being hired at a very responsible position, so the company is also going to expect that you have some relevant experience. Nevertheless, our classmates also had made it to very different industries, both from pre to post MBA, but the kind of opportunities or the struggle that you might have to do, or the hard work that you might have to put in order to get to those kind of opportunities is going to be a lot higher. If you want to get an easy job, maybe you take your first job in your industry and then work there for a year, gain some relevant functional experience, and then make an industry jump. That might work out better.
But that would hold true for any 1-year MBA, any international 1-year MBA, I guess, right? Because if you are looking to 1-year MBAs are usually not very ideal for people who want to change their industry also, their domain also, and if it's an international MBA, then you are changing the geography also. So I think that would hold true for any international 1-year MBA, right?
Well, I believe so, but I'm not too sure about. I can't speak about other business schools. At least from the opportunities in Netherlands, that's what I can say.
So, when a little personal question. So, why did you, after 5 years of work experience, why did you want to do the MBA, and how did you, come about, decide zeroing in on, RSM?
That's an interesting question, Ozma. For me, I was actually through TCS, I was working in very different roles, and almost every year I was changing my country and my city. So life was pretty exciting for me before I went into the MBA, and even after that, it became even more exciting. But the reason I wanted to get into MBA was because, like everyone else, I wanted to change my industry. I wanted to get into business consulting, and I thought MBA is the best route to get into it, and that's the reason why I went into MBA. However, a lot of MBA students and everyone who gets into MBA goes into it with this kind of notion that I want to change, I want to get out of what I am doing right now. And what happens with most of the people, and that happened with not just people in my class, but my friends who went into doing MBA in different schools also, is that halfway through you really identify yourself kind of getting attracted or getting inclined towards one of those natural things that you like to do. And it's best to find that out during your MBA. While you have had 5-6 years of experience, an MBA is a good break for yourself where you give yourself some time, reskill yourself, gain some more knowledge, talk to more people, and identify what is it that you would love to do for the rest of your life. Because that's like the kind of change that you're going to make, and you would not want to make that change very frequently in your life.
So, Nivedita.
Yeah, I don't know if I answered your question.
Yep, I got a fair idea, you know. So Nivedita has this question that, you know, what was your tuition fee in 2012?
What I remember, I spent between 25 to 30 lakhs in total, out of which about 22-23 lakhs was spent on the tuition.
What is the scholarship scenario in RSM? That's another of Nivedita's question.
That's a great question. There are several scholarships, and what you might find on their website is only a few. I would suggest that if you're seriously considering RSM, I can put you in touch with some people at the RSM MBA office. It's best to talk to them one-on-one. You can get you can get introduced to several other scholarships that are not published on the website, such as the Star Student Association has their own scholarship that is also accessible to other students. There is a diversity scholarship that is pretty unique to RSM, which also speaks for the kind of student cohort that RSM is trying to build. But there are several scholarship opportunities based on your merit, based on your diversity, and especially for women, it is a lot easier to get a scholarship on the grounds of diversity because RSM MBA promotes a high percentage of women in the class. We had about 31% women in our class.
Right. So, Abhishek's question is, would you recommend RSM with healthcare industry role in Europe as a post-MBA goal? So if somebody wants to get into the healthcare industry after his MBA, so is RSM a good place to go to? That is his question, I guess.
Well, healthcare industry is a pretty broad term because even Philips is in healthcare, Johnson & Johnson is in healthcare, Novartis is in healthcare, and hospitals are also in healthcare. So when you say healthcare industry, do you mean pharmaceutical companies or do you mean from a doctor like coming with a very healthcare medical background? So if you're coming from a medical background, then RSM MBA is probably not the best choice because there are other courses I know of, particularly one in Cambridge. I think Cambridge University has a healthcare focused MBA, which is probably a better choice than RSM. But if you're looking at moving into Johnson & Johnson, Philips, and those kind of industries who have presence in healthcare, they're serving the healthcare industry and they have a heavy penetration in healthcare industry, then yes, RSM MBA is a good choice.
Right. So it's like if somebody wants to get into the pharmaceutical industry, then it's a good choice, right?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Vinay Menon has a question. What is the possibility of an international student to get a job in Netherlands? I think what he means is in terms of regulations. Like in the US, you have this whole H1B thing, So in Netherlands, what's the this whole work visa permit thing, for international student?
Yeah, that's a pretty good question. What happens is that with your with your MBA and studentship at Netherlands, you get a 6 months extended visa for working in Netherlands on a student visa. Okay, within which time you can find a job very easily. I think it's 6 or 12 months. I think you get about anything between 6 to 12 months of visa, based on which you can start working. And it's compared to UK, compared to probably US particularly, it's easier to get a work visa in Netherlands. It's not that difficult. You can easily find a job. I got my job by going to meetups in Amsterdam, and I bumped into the founder of my company, and from there I picked up my job. So it's a lot about the biggest shock that we Indians get outside of India when we go for our MBA is the fact that no one serves you a job on a platter. You really have to network, go meet out people, improve your skills, and just figure yourself out over there. That's the only difference. Otherwise, opportunities are.
So, in terms of government regulations for international students, you feel that that it's comparatively easier for international students to get a job. In terms of purely companies willingness to hire internationals, you think that's not a problem?
That's not a problem at all. Especially Netherlands, the local Dutch population is pretty small. It's about 16 million.
Oh, okay.
So it's very small. So that is the reason why the Dutch companies are very open to hiring expats. And even across the city, even Rotterdam and Amsterdam has a very big expat population. So companies are very open to hire international candidates.
Right. So since the population is so small, so they do need foreigners to run their economy. I think their economy is dependent to some extent on expats and international foreigners working in their country. So I hope that answers your question. Saurav Taneja's question is: are post MBA opportunities available in conventional marketing roles, or the inclination in Netherlands is more towards techno integrated job? So I'm not sure what you mean by conventional marketing roles, by the way. I mean, maybe Vivek might have a better.
Yeah, I'll try to answer that. I think conventional marketing is something that comes from the FMCG companies, where you are trying to market ATL, BTL, and those kind of things. Yes, those kind of opportunities are there, but you would not be able to excel in those kind of opportunities in anywhere else where you do not have the cultural understanding of that place. So traditional marketing, for you to excel in traditional marketing at anywhere, you need to have a cultural understanding, and it's the nuances of that geography that helps you in traditional marketing. So traditional marketing does have opportunities, but it would be very difficult for you to make it to those options. Yes, additionally, marketing in itself as a function is changing a lot. Even the marketing course at MBA had a techno marketing angle to it. There was a lot of digital marketing concepts being taught even in my class, which was almost 5-6 years ago. So I can only say that might have become even more techno marketer kind of a thing now. Right.
Kalyan has a question that he has got an experience of 7 years in IT and 5 years of those in entrepreneurship. So, is the RSM 1-year MBA program helpful for entrepreneurship?
I think since I'm an entrepreneur myself, it is certainly helpful. But if you already have an entrepreneurship background, if you're already an entrepreneur, I would say why waste your money in an MBA?
Maybe he wants to go global. Then yes, of course, that the networking would definitely help. Anybody aspiring to an entrepreneur, anybody who wants to expand their take their venture to the next level, then network definitely helps. I guess it does.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you, but I think if he has 5 years of entrepreneurship experience, he has already gained the skill and the knowledge to expand his network. So Kalyan, I would suggest that if you are looking for just expanding your network, connect with me. I will open my network to you. You don't need an MBA. But if there is, if someone is looking at using MBA as a path to get into entrepreneurship, yes, RSM MBA does help, because the MBA exposes you to a very different kind of cohort, which is very different compared to other business schools, especially in India. While there is no entrepreneurship program, but there is a very deep entrepreneurship culture in the Dutch economy. The Dutch people are by nature very entrepreneurial, so if you get in a connection with them, you will automatically pick up a lot of entrepreneurial skills and business skills from them. So yes, Netherlands, the Dutch culture and all of that is very inducive to entrepreneurship.
Right. So Abhishek wants to know the GMAT median score. So Abhishek, I recommend you go to RSM's website. You will find the most recent information there. I don't expect Vivek to give you the answer, so you'll find the information on the RSM website. Kalyan's question, I
can take a stab at because I think this is a very short-sighted approach at looking at GMAT median score.
Right.
Because what happens in each of the schools is that you are being put in your pool of candidates, and for each pool of candidates, the median score differs. While most of the schools are going to put up some median score or something like that, which I doubt would be there on any of the schools' websites, but you might find it in forums and those kind of places, but don't buy that, Abhishek. Because based on what background you have, what kind of essays and SOPs you are writing, your candidature is going to be very different from someone. If you have 750, while someone who has 700 only, but has a much diverse and prolific work background, could be placed in a very different pool. So think about all those things when you're thinking about GMAT score.
Yeah, GMAT is just one of the criteria, so don't be, that is not the end of everything, neither is it the beginning of everything. Even I have seen people with 760, 770 also getting rejections from, universities that are not in top 30, top 40. So it's the entire package that you have to work on. So having said that, Indians tend to score high on the GMAT, so having a high GMAT score is not going to be harmful, at least, So you can, but don't make it the goal of your life. So just try to strike a balance. That's it,
Yeah, if you're in the pool of male IT background and Indian, then you are actually in the most competitive pool.
Yeah.
Because that's the highest number of GMAT applicants and the highest number of MBA applicants everywhere around the world. So having a higher GMAT score in that pool obviously helps.
Yeah.
Anywhere between 730 to 750 and above is good.
Right. So Kalyan, I did not understand your question. Your question is, what does RSM call 1-year MBA? So
it calls it 1-year MBA.
Duration. Right, the duration is 1 year, so it's pretty self-explanatory, And 1-year MBA means the duration is 1 year. A 2-year MBA means the duration is 2 years, Okay, Niveda's question is, would getting an internship also help in changing the industry? That is, if one is interested in sustainability, how can one go about it? It's a pretty broad question, so Vivek,
Yes, it's an interesting question. You should and absolutely must do an internship if you are looking at changing your industry function or either of those. It's an absolute must, and especially if you're looking at getting into sustainability, then RSM is a very good school. A couple of my classmates got into sustainability, and companies such as the FCA or some companies that do food sustainability certification and all those kind of things. So yes, you get ample amount of internship opportunities which are present from December of the year that you join to March of the next year. So 3 to 4 months of internship. Even during the summer, if you are especially interested in changing your industry, I would say don't take the summer holidays to roam around Europe. Take an internship instead, and you'll definitely have an edge when it comes to applying to jobs in MBA after the MBA.
Vamshi Krishna's question is, what are the chances of admission for a person with 3 years of work experience?
I think I've said this enough number of times that it will depend on what kind of SOP you have, what kind of experience you have. Are you an IT developer, or are you coming from, are you a pilot? If you're a pilot, then your chances are really high. If you are an IT person, then it will depend on what kind of GMAT score you have, what kind of recommendations you have. Try to get recommendations from the bosses or your boss's boss, and get some good recommendations. Those things are always going to help you. And
So,
write
right.
really good.
Right. So in short, you are not going to get rejection if you have 3 years of work experience. 3 years of work experience is not that you are below the minimum criteria or anything. So rest of the profile you have to work on, whether it is the GMAT score or the essays or the letters of recommendation, you have to work on that. I hope that answers your question. The question is a little vague, so it's difficult to answer. That's very general questions, but I hope you will be able to do something with that information. Abhishek has an interesting question. How would you compare RSM with HEC for if somebody is looking for strategy or marketing kind of roles, post the MBA in Europe?
I think RSM has an edge on strategy for marketing. If you come from some early marketing experience, RSM can give you. Again, marketing has a cultural angle to it. For you to be able to market a foreign land, you need to know the culture of that land. For marketing, comment on strategy is definitely ahead of HEC. For finance, HEC is a much better school. But to fit into the country after your MBA, I think RSM is much better placed than HEC.
Right. And in terms of the duration also, your HCC is a 15-month MBA program versus the RSM, which is a 12-month MBA program. So it's like they are not directly comparable. So it's about what fits you. For marketing, nowadays, there's nothing called generic marketing anymore, and any kind of marketing, people, the domestic students would always have an edge over you. But if you want to get into the digital marketing kind of thing, then it's good. HEC has a very strong program on luxury brand management kind of thing. That is also a type of marketing. Marketing nowadays, there's nothing called. The marketing world has become a very dynamic one. It's become a very there's multiple verticals within itself. So you have to first ask yourself what you want to get into. But the traditional, the ATL, BTL, B2B, B2C marketing, that is for that kind of role. The domestics would always have an edge over you. So if you want to go to France, then a French national or somebody who has studied, born, brought up in France would always be given preference by companies when they have come to recruit, when they assess candidates. so an international student would not be given preference, or would not be given serious consideration as compared to somebody who is from that country. So that is true for all countries, by the way, whether it's France or Netherlands or even US, UK, everywhere it's true. So yeah. So even though even in the US, you know, so it's the same story everywhere. So you have to kind of look into what you want to get into. Yeah.
Yeah, Ozma, I would disagree about US because marketing is a function that was born in US, so they are pretty open to getting anyone into a business school and converting them into a marketer. But then you have to pick the right school,
Right.
which is very marketing focused. And from a good US school, if you take the marketing specialization, you will get converted into a marketer.
Right. I mean, of course, if it has to be something like a Wharton, Kellogg, and and the likes, obviously, you know.
Probably, for
Right.
marketing.
Right. So Kalyan has the backup, to the entrepreneurship question that he had asked. He is saying that his business did not do well, so he now wants to kind of gain the knowledge. So I think so. Then in that case, the RSM MBA would probably be a good option, right?
Yes, it will certainly, because the Dutch people, there's also a thriving community of VCs and the venture capital network in Netherlands and Germany, which is very close to Netherlands, is also pretty good. So you get to make a very good network. Plus, the Dutch people and the Dutch startup economy is very active in Amsterdam particularly. So you will come across a lot of entrepreneurs in Netherlands. Certainly the
Nivedita, would you elaborate your questions? I'm not able to understand your questions. You say your question is, what about people who are into photography? I didn't understand this question. Then does learning Dutch help? So are you asking about your chances of getting admission? Can you elaborate? So Vivek, in addition to the MBA program in RSM, are there any good masters in management or masters in management related programs in RSM that Indian students with like less than 1 year or 2 year work experience can consider?
Absolutely, there are several, and that's not with the. So there is within the Erasmus University, there is this RSM MBA school, and then there is the other RSM, which is basically the Erasmus University wing, where you have courses like MFM, Masters in Financial Management, and then there are several MSc courses in Business Analytics, in economics also. So there are several courses that you can check out at the Erasmus University website. There are a ton of courses around financial management, especially. We used to interact a lot with MFM students, so I know that MFM is a fantastic course if you're looking at getting into financial management or into financial.
And for that, you don't need to have a work experience, right? You can be a fresher as well.
Yeah, you can be a fresher. You will get a entry level role right after the MBA, but then it would become, if you're getting into an entry level role, it would become important for you to learn Dutch.
Okay, right. But after the MBA, then it's not that the roles that you get hired after the MBA, that knowing Dutch is not mandatory.
It's not mandatory. In fact, it's very difficult to learn Dutch because most people are so open to other languages that you can almost comfortable speaking English throughout your life while living with it.
So Nivedita,
it does help. It does help. If you learn Dutch, it gets you another edge, because it's like, look at it as a checklist of competitiveness.
Of course.
If you're a highly intellectual person and you have a lot of skills, if you add Dutch to that skill list, you're going to have an edge.
Yeah. So if somebody who is applying who knows who is like proficient in Dutch or has some level of proficiency in Dutch, so does that add?
Can you excuse me for a bit? I'm running out of battery. Just let me pull my
sure,
charger and I'll be back in a second.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, hello, I'm back.
Right. So, so if somebody is applying and the candidate, knows Dutch, has a certain level of proficiency in Dutch, so does that add to the diversity factor? Right? Can you hear me?
Yes, now
right. Yeah. So my question is that if somebody is applying for the RSM MBA and has a certain level of proficiency in Dutch, so does that add to the diversity angle?
As an applicant, it would make less difference if you know Dutch, because, like I said, in my class there were only 3 Dutch people, and I don't think it has changed.
Okay, right. Alright, so so Nivedita, I think that would be that answers your question, right? Prakhar's question is, what are the accommodation facility in RSM?
So RSM has several executive hostels, which are called as iHouse and Dishans, where you get what's the word? You get like an apartment kind of a room where you will be living. So it's like a single accommodation apartment. If you can choose to live by yourself, rent out an apartment close to the school, but the school apartments are pretty good.
Okay, right. So Kostov, I believe you joined a little late actually. So we already discussed this, that after completing your MBA in Netherlands, you can work in the Netherlands. And as I said, we already covered the work visa requirements and everything. So the recording of this session will be uploaded on our YouTube channel. So once you go through that, you will be able to get the detailed discussion that we have already done. Is there any other question? We have a couple of more minutes. Okay, Nivedita has a question. How many of the students get into a job by the time they finish the MBA?
Almost 100% of the people get an internship. That is for sure, because there are several things that are happening around internship. Also, there will be a living management consulting project that happens in the second last semester, through which you are going to be working on a project in a company. So that kind of converts into an internship. But within six months of completion of MBA, because your internship itself gets done by March of next year. So your classes get over in December, Jan, Feb, March you are in internship, and by June, July almost 80-90% of the students would have a job.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys check out the data, on ft.com or any of the QS or any, you will see that the employment rate, within 6 months of completing the MBA, almost all the students are able to get a job, get a full-time job. That is, so that is that data is available on, and you can check out in multiple sources. Alright, so we'll take one last question. If there's no question, then just okay. So we'll wait for a couple of seconds. One last question. Anybody? Oh yeah. Are there any exchange programs with different business schools or different countries? Good question, Prakhar.
Yes, there are. Yes, there are several exchange programs. From my class, people had gone to Kellogg's Business School, Chicago Booth, LBS, all sorts of business schools. You can check that out on their website. I think the opportunities are there. Yes, for sure.
Okay, so that's all. Thank you, Vivek. Thanks a lot for taking out your time on a Sunday on your weekend. So thanks a lot for doing this. I'm sure our students have gained a lot of valuable information from this session, and I hope a lot of them will be applying to RSM. And if anybody wants to get in touch with you, I will let you know.